call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I had just been told I could go home after 18 years. And so I was devastated. I was 3 weeks from paroling when they took away my date. The first transgender I came in contact with was Eva Reeves, which is the person that ultimately this all happened with. Well, the first occurrence, because it happened more than once, the first occurrence, I was in the restroom in the day room here. There's a common restroom that we can use. There's a frosted glass on the door, and it's, I would say, maybe not quite half the way up the window in the restroom. That person just walked up and stood there looking in the window. There was no knock or anything. Normally, people will walk up and knock. Somebody will say, I'm in here, or whatever. I had the occupied sign on the outside. I was seated on the toilet, and I told that person, I'm in here. Do you not see me? Go away. But continued to linger for a few more seconds. I just kind of brushed it off at that point. One time could be an accident. I went back and I told one of my friends. That was really disturbing because that person didn't even knock on the door, just stood there and acted like they couldn't comprehend what I was saying. We had to work around each other, but I tried to just avoid any contact or conversation, anything like that. There was just a very uncomfortable kind of tension after that. A couple weeks later, it happened again. And same thing, but this time the person stood there a little bit longer. And finally, after I came out that time, all I said was, this is the second time you've done this to me. It's not okay. You need to knock it off, because once was okay, and now you've done it more than once, and you clearly know that I'm in there. You can see me in there. I know you watched me go in there. I know you saw the occupied sign outside. This is the second time, and so you need to knock it off. That was it. Went back to my desk. I sat down, but it just didn't sit right with me. And then that's when I decided I would file a grievance against SB 132. After I spoke to Ava, I came over to my housing staff, and I'm not trying to file a PREA or call any kind of assault or anything. I said, I would like you to document in your logbook that this is the second time this has happened, and that I just want to document it. The correctional officer in here, he was very kind. He was like, are you sure you're okay? Do you want me to call anyone? I was like, no. I just want it in the book because I feel like this is intentional, and I want somebody to know about it if it ever comes up later that I spoke to you and I did the right thing by coming to you and telling you about it. Captain on the yard, he came and interviewed me. He asked me, you know, what happened, if I was fearing for my safety. I said, no, the only reason I filed this grievance was because I believe that SB 132 is bad policy. I believe that preoperative men should not be housed with women here with their genitalia still attached. I disagree with it, and I just want it notated that because of the situation that has happened to me twice now, I feel very uncomfortable, and I think that this policy is bad. He gives me a notification a couple days later saying that the situation is resolved. I'm not in fear for my safety, and as far as he's concerned, the case is closed. That was in February. At the end of March, I went to board thinking that this whole matter had been resolved, and I got found suitable for parole. After I had originally filed that grievance, after being found suitable for parole, I got served, which there's time constraints on how you do all of these things. By the time they served me this write-up, it was already time barred by 133 days, so it wasn't even a legal write-up. And that was the write-up where they said that it was a false report, that I was part of a faction and I was trying to target Ava Reeves based on his gender identity. I had spoken to Captain Padilla at that time, who was the PREA manager at the time that I filed the grievance. When he finished interviewing me, he said, I'm going to tell you this off the record. He said, the bottom line is that you guys are always going to lose because their lawyers are better than your lawyers. Even though I was found not guilty of any of the things that were in that write-up, when I went to board in December, they basically said that because of my institutional misconduct, they were never specific about what it was, that they denied my parole for 5 years. As far as the state is concerned, I'm not eligible to go back to parole until 2028. I had worked 17 years from the record that I had at this point. I had just been told I could go home after 17 years, 18 years. And so I was devastated. I was 3 weeks from paroling when they took away my date. I mean, my family had already made arrangements for me to come. People were waiting for me. In their minds, I was already guilty, and so they were going to take away my date. From that point forward, I feel like it was just one thing after another. From the time I got out of segregation to the time that 2 years later, that I worked myself back over here to the honor dorm, and I'm actually back in my old job. I was moved 9 different times. Interestingly enough, one of the jobs they placed me in was working exclusively with 2 other transgenders from male prisons. It just seemed intentional. I went to board in December. The commissioner was terribly rude. The first thing he said off the top was the first question he asked me was like, well, you're familiar with SB 132, aren't you? That was the first question. And then in the midst of the board hearing, he said, don't you know how hard it is to get a parole date? Why wouldn't you just be quiet and go home? All of the rehabilitation groups, all of the self-awareness that you've asked me to attain over these last 17 years, everything you've asked me to do, you're asking me to throw it all away because the reason I committed my crime was because I didn't ask for help. It's because I didn't speak up. It's because I didn't communicate with anyone what was going on in my life. So what you're asking me to do is forget about all of that and go back to the state of mind I was at when I committed my crime. We are punished for speaking up for ourselves. There's an emotional lawfare of sorts that's going on against the women here who try to speak up for ourselves. We were told, if you see something, say something. And when I was issued that write-up, coincidentally, when I came out from the building where I got given the paperwork, I saw the warden. And I asked him, and I don't understand why this is happening to me when all I did was speak and use my voice, to voice an opinion. As far as I know, just because I'm incarcerated doesn't mean that I still don't have freedom of speech. I still have that right to voice if I disagree with something. So I don't understand why this is happening. And his words to me were this: if you didn't do anything wrong, just keep your head down and be quiet and let the process play out. ironic that these men transferred here because they felt like they were part of a marginalized community in the men's prison. But now that they have come here, the cisgender women are now the marginalized community. Basically, all they did was just switch the group of people that are now being marginalized. We truly don't have much of a chance in here compared to the people that they have representing them. I mean, when you have the California legislature weighing in their favor and the governor himself, there's not much that we feel like we can say or do. Everybody talks to me here about how can you still walk around here with a smile on your face after everything they've done to you. Even staff have said that to me. You know, Kat, you got screwed. You know that, right? I know. But what I have to know is that there has to be something good that comes out of this. There has to be a reason that it happened. And as Amy Ishikawa tells me often, she says, you're the linchpin for this. So if we can somehow get this injustice that was done towards you undone, then it will never happen to another woman after me.